All right, hey everybody, I'm Lonnie,
I'm Mark.
and we are Untitled Nerd Network, brought to you by both Infinity Flux and your local Satanist, both out of the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. And this is for the first time in a long time.
I'm like boat MALARKEY.
Yeah, God Almighty,
We're back.
It's been a couple of months. But like we had gotten together at the Karting for Kitties event this past weekend, which went really well. We ended up crossing the $500 mark, and we're actually going to be talking to Jason on the air pretty soon.
That's going to be fun.
And he's been our sponsor for almost 2 years, and he personally hasn't appeared yet. Megan has on numerous occasions.
He has personally gone out of his way to not appear.
Yeah, he's not. We're really taking him on the far outside reaches of like outer space of his comfort zone.
But the cool part, and this is the only spoiler I'm going to give you for that interview, is Infinity Flux has some amazing news coming up.
Yeah.
And that interview with Jason is going to be all about letting you guys know what that news is.
Are we sure they're going to break that?
Yeah. Okay. That's what I specifically told, because like he was telling me about it, and I was like, well, then that's what we'll do the interview about. We'll let you talk about that. And, question, so yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be coming up sometime in September.
Right.
Interestingly enough, this particular video, God, there's no telling how long we're going to talk about this. But
we're behind.
I ran across a few articles, a couple of videos, and just people throwing fan theories out there about not only how Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to go, but also how now that the Fox Disney deal is done.
Yes.
Like it's done.
Yes.
But it's done, but it's not finalized. Like they can't legally do anything with it till I think like the first part of next year.
Which is just in time.
Yeah, it'll be perfect amount of time. And so Phase 4 and the Fantastic Four and X-Men might go hand in hand. And I've saw many ideas, and I figured we could kind of hang out and talk about what we think is going to happen, or what some cool, not necessarily what we think is going to happen, because there's some stuff that I think would be really cool that I know for a fact will not happen in the MCU. I'll go ahead and say that it's going to be kind of hard to top Thanos. Well, Thanos is a cosmic-wide threat. He wiped out half of life everywhere. Whereas, I mean, I guess it would be, personally, what I think would be awesome is for Guardians of the Galaxy. I like the idea of Galactus. I never even really give it much thought. But what would be neat is in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, for them to be back on Xandar, because Thanos wiped out Xandar.
Well, I mean,
but let's say they rebuild, and they're either right in the middle of rebuilding or they're just about done, and then the Guardians or Galactus pops up to wipe the planet out. The Guardians show up, and Guardians 3 is just them getting their asses kicked by Galactus, the Silver Surfer, Terrax, whoever else is a part of it.
And just leave it as the Surfer. Because Terrax didn't come around until after Silver Surfer abandoned him. So like he only has one Herald at a time. And he he only has one Herald at a time.
The only real they had the Punisher robot in the first one.
So the Punisher robot is Galactus's dog.
Wasn't that the thing that waves his arms?
It's been so long since I've read it, but it was his dog, the quote unquote dog.
The only real exposure I have to that is the Marvel's 4-issue miniseries.
Oh wow!
I've never read the original Galactus story. Not all the way through.
Because neither one of us were born when it came out.
Yeah, but I had Marvel. It's available on Marvel Unlimited and various reprints and stuff like that. But one of the things, like in The Heroes Reborn, now I know a lot of people don't even like to talk about that, but the Heroes Reborn series, he had multiple heralds who went to different parts of the earth to activate these like machines that he had implanted in the planet thousands of years ago before life became a major thing. And then he used those to siphon the life energy out of the planet with his ship. Now, I'm sure that's not the way it happens in the actual. He just shows up and that's it.
Well, no, there's actually so the way that it works is he can drain life energy without the use of machines, but he's got this machine that he builds that comes down and taps into points on the planet and assists him with it. Makes it.
It's basically the same thing, but just kind of
like a food processor.
Yeah.
Like I could eat the orange, or I could pulp it and make it orange juice and drink it, and it'll go down easier. I don't know.
That probably the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But we know from phases 1, 2, and 3 that Galactus doesn't have to be in every. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of standalone. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of standalone movies. Now, this isn't saying Galactus is going to happen, but it would be a hell of a good idea.
Well, let's see here. I mean, if we're talking about building up to a big bad at the end of, let's say we took 3 phases to get to the end of the Thanos arc, which they did really well. So if we're talking about building another 3 phases to get to the end of this, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, Galactus would be a good mid-level, I think, kind of like how Ronan was.
I think Galactus would be a great overarching 3-phase bad guy, but the underlying threat, like in Hydra, was the underlying threat.
Right.
In phases 1, 2, and 3 for the most part. Skrulls. I would like to see a secret invasion underlying story underneath the overall Galactus threat.
That would be a good one.
Because you don't know who's who.
Yeah.
Like, is this Captain America or is it a Skrull? Is this Captain Marvel or is he a Skrull?
There's some characters I would definitely like to see brought in. Spider-Woman would be a cool introduction. I think I would like to see her, like the Jessica Drew version. I don't know. I mean, you have to look at what they're talking about going forward, because they're going forward. They're talking about shifting their focus from Captain America being the face of the MCU to Captain Marvel being the face of the MCU, which I have no problem with. Although I did watch a movie the other day with Brie Larson in it, and I was like, "Holy crap, that's going to be Captain Marvel."
Every time I hear her name, I think Brie Olson.
Yeah, it's kind of too close. Isn't it?
You don't want to Google that.
So she was with Charlie Sheen when he was doing Tiger Blood.
Boom! Yes.
But anyway, so the introduction, so the Fantastic Four, and plus the Fantastic Four is just integral if you're going to do a Galactic story. They have to be there.
Yes. I don't think they should show up till a little bit later on, though.
So I think one of the ways they could do it is everybody knows the origin of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I think one of the really cool things that they could do with them to bring them in is, first off, they have to do it right. So far, we've had 3 Fantastic Four movies, and not one has been anywhere near close. Okay, so with that being said, there's a couple of different things that they could integrate into this. I would like to see just the Fantastic Four just come back from the negative zone. They've always been there, but they've been away for a while. Like, they for the past 10 years, they've been exploring the negative zone, and they just come back.
So you're saying they've been around, or maybe time passes differently in the negative zone, and they've only been away for a year, but it's been 10 years in real, our time.
Right, or something like that. So, like, basically, you could very easily, do flashback scenes where, you have Reed and Tony going to school together. And then, Reed talking about, the theory for his spaceship and all that fun stuff. And then, just a very brief glimpse of how they got their powers. We don't need the whole origin story. We just need the, okay, we've got these powers, and we've discovered, and probably used the ultimate version of it where they discovered the negative zone, and that's how they got their powers. So they're exploring the negative zone to try to find a cure for Ben, and that's where they've been since just before Iron Man. Like, just before, so if you want to put it chronologically, just before the Iron Man movie, the Fantastic Four left Earth.
That movie, their first movie, could take place before Iron Man.
Right, which they're going to be doing with Captain Marvel anyway.
Yeah.
So you do that. We don't, like I said, we don't need the origin story. We just need a flashback to, Tony wishing them good luck, them leaving. And then 10 years later, the Baxter building, it's all, kind of dark and, and everything. And they show back up, and then you get a little bit of
the negative zone probably has something to do with his arc reactor technology that he was researching.
Maybe. Yeah. You could tie that in, and then you get a little bit of a scenes where they're catching up with what's been going on, and then boom, the Fantastic Four are back. Or better yet, this is where they make their debut as the Fantastic Four. They've got these powers. They've spent 10 years exploring these powers, in the negative zone, or 1 year by their time, however long. And now they're like, well, obviously there's some crap going on. We need help. Everybody else has got costumes. We need costumes. Johnny would be all for that. Hey, we get costumes. So I think that's how they could do Fantastic Four. The X-Men is a completely different ballpark because
now the theory that I read that I really loved, and I can't remember where I saw this, or I'd give it credit, is that early on, like maybe in the 1960s, or it probably wouldn't be the 60s, to make it chronologically work, you're looking at probably the 90s or early 2000s. Magneto did his attack with nuclear weapons on Cape Citadel.
Okay.
And Xavier already had the X-Men, a handful of the X-Men together and everything. And after that attack happened, people started freaking out. Well, Xavier, to quell fears, and Xavier has a history of doing some really shady stuff.
Yeah.
He he got S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury in on helping him create Cerebro, and he used the powers of Cerebro to wipe the memory of that happening from everybody on Earth. And that's how come nobody knows what mutants are. Nick Fury's been in on it the whole time.
Okay, that's one way of doing it. I kind of like that in a way.
Well, in the Ultimate Universe, S.H.I.E.L.D. was responsible for the creation of the mutant population.
Well, yeah, but the Ultimate Universe had some things really, really right, and then they had some things really, really wrong.
I like the idea that the Weapon X program turned Beast blue and furry.
Well, I kind of like the idea that he did it to himself because he was trying to find a cure. Like, he was trying to find a cure for the fact that he, was a big-handed, big-footed freak.
Is that what happened in that Amazing Adventures comic? Or was that just a movie thing?
No, it was in the comic.
I know he did it to himself, but
he was trying to find a cure.
Okay.
And
made it worse. That's usually the way it works.
So I don't know. The X-Men, there's just so much you could do, so I think the really cool another really cool tie-in, you don't have to have him in the Fantastic Four movies at first. You could introduce him in the Thor movie, in the next couple of Thor movies. Mm-hmm. So now you have Asgard, and what's left of Asgard, they have nowhere to go, right? And I know everybody keeps saying that Loki's gone, but
no, dude, Loki's still alive.
But you could do the female. So first off, you could do the female Loki. Okay. If Tom Hiddleston's not coming back, you could do female Loki, and still carry on. You'd have to find an actress that can just nail it, though, and do the whole Asgard moving to Latveria arc from when they did Asgard on Earth. So Asgard comes, what's left of Asgard on that ship comes back to Earth. They're looking for a place. Loki gets in touch with Doctor Doom, and he's like, because the way that it worked in the comic books is this place looks like home. It's mountainous. It's
Asgard float above Oklahoma.
Yeah,
for a while.
For a while it was just floating above Oklahoma. It was just freaking weird.
That was right around Civil War, the death of Captain America, Secret Invasion. That was right around that whole time. Because I remember I used to have it was one of those deals where I'd been away from comics for a while.
Yeah,
it was going out.
It was right around that time.
And they had like a book that was like, what's been going on in Marvel? And it was like a free thing that Marvel put out to all the comic book stores. It was about 20 pages long. And it was just a summary of everything that had happened over the last 5 years or so. And I was like, holy crap, this is perfect because I've not known anything. It was when they did the Planet Hulk thing.
Oh, God.
Like the whole deal. I will say who would make a really good female Loki. I don't know her name, but the lady that plays Marjorie Tyrell.
Oh, Natalie Dormer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I could
give her black hair and let her do her thing.
I could totally buy that. I could 100 or
you saw it here first.
She's a little old. I mean, if you're wanting to draw from the Game of Thrones thing, either her or the chick that plays Cersei.
You're talking about what's her last name is Headey.
Yeah.
Or Headley.
Headley. One of those two would be great. I if you wanted to go with a little bit of a younger look.
If you want to go with the younger look, go with the girl that plays Arya.
No, not that young.
How old is she?
She just recently hit like somewhere between 18 and 20. Oh. But Natalie Dormer would be a good one. I can agree with that if you wanted to go with like somebody younger.
I'm gonna go with that. Dye her hair black, throw her in green, and say have at it.
Yeah. She would definitely okay.
That's
and then just and then of course you'd have to have somebody, Dr. Doom. I mean, and have him trying to steal powers from the Asgardians, and stuff like that. And then
I know who would play Dr. Doom.
Who?
Ivy Doom Kitty. You know who I'm talking about?
No.
The cosplayer?
No.
Okay, never mind.
No. I have no idea.
That was just me making a joke. I'm not being for real about
that. Yeah, because and that's the other thing. They'd have to do Doom right. Doom, so far.
He was the only thing I didn't like about the latest Fantastic Four movie. I liked that movie, but I didn't like the way they did Doom.
Really?
Yeah. I thought it was okay.
Okay, so the latest one was kind of close.
I liked it better than Rise of the Silver Surfer.
If you told Rise of the Silver Surfer was my favorite one out of the three that we've had.
I was butthurt about how they did Galactus.
Well, yeah. Well, I was upset about the fact that we had the whole Galactus coming, but then we never got to see him. All we got to see was like the shadow, of him for just like the briefest of seconds, and then he was gone. But the X-Men, the X-Men are going to be a hard one to pull back in because, like you were saying, to have them have been there forever.
They're going to have mutants be. What another good kind of little theory that you can roll with is the mutant population is suddenly a byproduct of the Thanos snap. Something happened when he did that triggered the X gene in several thousand people across the planet. And they all became mutants at the same time, and it became an issue.
Or it's a byproduct of... The problem with the X-Men is that if you use Magneto as the central villain, with it set in the current time period, you either have to make Magneto ungodly old, because central to his character is his internment in a Nazi prison camp. So there's, unless you bump it up and have,
I'm sitting here brainstorming all kinds of crazy
Well, wait
stuff.
a minute. Okay, so Wanda and Peter, canonically, back and forth, have been, at points in time, on and off, Magneto's kids. Hydra had Magneto's kids. Hydra could have Magneto.
No, I'm not going to buy them having him captive.
Well, we know they have cryogenic places. They could have him on ice. And then, he...
Oh, yeah.
So,
but I think him and Xavier would have to be close to the same age.
Well, you could work with that. You could have Xavier be so.
Xavier was 20 years younger already.
You could have Xavier be young. You could have Xavier be older than him in the modern times. You know, like his friend just disappeared years ago. You know, back when they were in their 20s, and then here's Magneto, still in his prime, still young, just got out of the ice, and here's Xavier, who kind of sort of has been preparing for this because he knows wherever Eric's been, he's going to come back ticked. I don't know. It's tricky.
I don't like the idea of them being vastly different in age, but it could work.
I mean, it could. Just, you know, there's.
Well, here's a issue. Now I hate even asking this, but if they do, you know, I'm sure they'll recast everybody. But whenever they bring in Xavier, do they or do they not bring in Patrick Stewart as Xavier again? Because nobody else can play him. Like I could see multiple other people like playing Wolverine or Cyclops or God, even Jubilee or Jean Grey. Those are interchangeable. But Xavier, they've had him penciled in for Xavier since like the late '80s.
This is true. I buy McAvoy as Xavier. I really do. I mean, he's an extremely talented actor.
Well, I mean, he's bald now. I mean, you know, the character.
Yeah, but I mean, Patrick Stewart is Xavier, and I mean, you could definitely pull him in. I mean, he's going back and doing Captain Picard again, so
yeah.
Why
not?
They
Fox is releasing Dark Phoenix middle to late next year.
Yep,
it's been pushed back a little bit. This movie is going to release after Avengers 4. So does Marvel just release this movie quietly and let the universe peter out, or do they do some rewrites and kind of link it in with the MCU a little bit, or maybe destroy the world, or?
Well, so the thing about it is that I personally think they're going to do a very, very hard reboot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because most everybody's contract is up. Most everybody's contracts are up.
Right, most of them's going to be returning for Guardians 3.
No, Well, that's if they can get over the fact that they fired James Gunn because Dave Bautista.
Well, I think everybody's pissed off about that, but they're locked into contracts.
Right, but that doesn't mean that they'll be happy about it. But I'm talking about like Chris Evans, his contract's up.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., his contract's up.
Hemsworth is up.
His contract's up.
Scarlett Johansson is too, isn't she?
You know,
all the original Avengers.
I think pretty much all of them are. So, you know, of course, for me, this gives you the perfect opportunity. If Hemsworth's not going to be in there, let's bring in some Beta Ray Bill. That's all I'm saying.
They would have had to have set that up.
They have.
And Ragnarok.
I mean, he's there. I mean, his face is there.
It's a statue, but you got to really kind of pause it and look at it just the right angle for that. Okay. I'll go ahead and tell you, I never noticed it while I was watching, and I was looking for it.
Wow. Okay. I saw it. I went into squee fits. And, of course, the new hammer has the same name as Beta Ray Bill's hammer.
True. So they are setting it up in that respect.
You know, so they could be. But, so that's where you replace Thor. You know, personally, I would love to see them replace Hemsworth with U.S. Agent. And maybe bring Johnson in to do it.
Hemsworth is Thor.
Yeah, sorry, Evans. Yeah, you know, I would like to see U.S. Agent, or at least, you know, the new Captain America.
Bucky.
Well, see, they could do it with Bucky, which I think would be cool. But also, I would like to see John Walker. I would like to see U.S. Agent somehow, some way.
They haven't even
mentioned him ever. I know, but you know, right now there is no Captain America running around in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's just and they haven't given him a name now. He's just, you know, Steve. Mm-hmm. So the government could be working on a new super soldier program because they've been doing it for years. The whole, you know, so on and so forth, you know, to try to make a new one, and it could be John Walker.
It could be Wolverine.
That's more that's more Canadians, but okay.
Wasn't that?
Yeah, Department H was Canadians.
Yeah, but wasn't whether it be like the Ultimate Universe or something? Wasn't there some kind of canon that said
they have tied it in
Captain
America's Weapon Zero?
Yeah,
and then there's a Weapon 1, a Weapon 2, Wolverine's Weapon 10. The Cuckoo Sisters are Weapon 21, I think.
Wasn't Phantom X Weapon 13?
I think so. He was. Speaking of the Cuckoo Twins, have you let's talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The Gifted.
I
haven't seen it.
And Cloak and Dagger.
I haven't seen it.
You have
Legion either.
God, I haven't seen Legion. I don't think Legion's tied in, but The Gifted kind of sorta is tied in because there's mention of they're more tied into the Fox X-Men universe, but Cloak and Dagger drops so many MCU Easter eggs, it's not even funny.
May have to check that out.
Like there's
God, man, my schedule's already packed.
And it ties into, not only does it tie into the Marvel on-screen cinematic universe, but it also ties into the Netflix thing, which, so the Netflix thing we know references the Marvel Cinematic Universe because they keep talking about the event, which was Avengers 1. They keep talking about the event in New York. And there's been pictures of, the Hulk destroying Brooklyn, and newspaper clippings in the background and stuff like that. So there's been mention of them a whole bunch of times. In Cloak and Dagger, they've mentioned Danny Jones. They've mentioned Tony Stark. They've mentioned Luke Cage and reference it because there's a cop in. So Cloak and Dagger takes place in New Orleans. There's a cop that came from New York to New Orleans who's essential to the whole Cloak and Dagger cosmos, O'Reilly. And she's like, have I ever told you about my friend Misty? Talking about Misty Knight, which is a Luke Cage character. And then there's, this other guy that drops Tony Stark's name and Danny Jones's name. So I think we have a really good chance of seeing them on the big screen. And that series was epic. I mean, Kinsey and I just got through watching it the other day, and oh my God.
I want to see more references like that. Like, a lot of people, kind of a spoiler, a lot of people were really disappointed that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the end of this most recent season did not acknowledge the half of everybody disappearing.
Right. And that's kind of been I've had an issue with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. Like, they very, very briefly have like when Dark World happened, S.H.I.E.L.D. was cleaning up that mess over in England.
Yeah.
And Sif came down. Like, we got to see Sif. And
that's the last time she's appeared in anything.
I know, right? And I don't think they've actually mentioned anything going on in the Ultron. They mentioned Ultron. They've referenced what happened in Ultron. But I don't think they've referenced anything that's happened in the main universe.
S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't reference the MCU, and MCU doesn't reference S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, you think, all these Inhumans popping up and stuff, that might be kind of noteworthy.
Yeah, and that was originally supposedly the plan because, the tagline for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and for the MCU is it's all connected, but there's a pretty big gap between the series and the theatrical universe, which, I'm a little upset about.
They don't even, that's really, I think it's just become too much work to try to write all that in. I guess maybe they want to feel like people who watch S.H.I.E.L.D. can watch it without watching the MCU films, or you could watch the MCU films without watching S.H.I.E.L.D.
The only way I can see their point is for them to work it into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would had to have had access to the movie scripts well in advance so that they could plot in these plot points. That opens the door for leaks.
Yeah, I guess that's just more.
That's the only thing I can see. Is like, okay, we've got these scripts, we've got to give it to these people over at ABC. Let's just hope somebody at ABC doesn't leak it to the public.
So, who talking about our Phase 4 X-Men plans, all that? So, who do you think the overall? Here's the thing: X-Men and Fantastic Four. Do you think they ought to take a bigger part? Like, do you think Phase 4 or maybe even Phase 5 should be almost wholly run X-Men wise, or do you think they should just slowly trickle in? And
I think the Fantastic Four should be a big part of it. The X-Men should probably be like a tertiary part, maybe, like kind of in the background, because the mutants kind of try to stay hidden to begin with. They've already kind of sort of planted the seeds that, especially in the Netflix series, they've kind of sort of planted the seeds that people are kind of afraid of people with powers. So to start throwing mutants out there and having people go, oh, hey, your next door neighbor could have energy beams that shoots out of his face. They could heighten that. If you want to do it on a more of a social commentary level, like some things have done in the past, you could have the whole mutant thing be an underlying arc as well. The mutant scare.
I think they should really kind of drop hints for like an entire phase, if not longer, that the government's planning some kind of or Shield. Have Shield be the bad guys. Have Shield be the ones that create the Sentinels.
Shield's not really there anymore, though. I mean, Agents of Shield. There's what, one little base. That's it. I mean, there's not that many Shield agents anymore, and like,
no, if that's the case, like, what the crap's going on with Nick Fury? Because he was driving around in New York just like regular. He had on what looked like his
normal outfit.
Yeah. He wasn't running around in a sweater.
His death. Yeah. That was kind of weird. Why was why was he with Hill?
He had a pager and
the Captain Marvel.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So something's going on behind the scenes. It's almost like Shield has kind of gone into like a covert, behind the scenes, like, because almost like what they were. Because if you notice,
right,
when Shield first popped up, nobody really knew about them. And then suddenly, all the superhero stuff happens. Shield becomes like a public entity once Hydra takes over. They're on every news channel known to man.
Right.
And then suddenly Shield disappears again. And so it's almost like once they got rid of Hydra, or for the most part got rid of Hydra, I bet Shield is still going strong, just nobody knows about it.
Well, I mean, in theory, Phil is, well, no, not Phil, because
or maybe it became Sword and they're operating out of space.
Sword, yeah, which would be good for the Captain Marvel
time. No.
But yeah, it's going to be kind of convoluted how they're going to have to do a lot of work, and they're going to have to do a lot of work to do it right, because there's so much that Fox has gotten wrong with the X-Men and with Fantastic Four that, at least in my opinion.
I would love to see a thing where it's almost like Avengers versus X-Men, where the X-Men find out that Sentinels have been popping down and killing mutants or taking them off to camps or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody on the Avengers is like, no, Shield's with us. They're doing good things. And, they're only after the evil mutants, the ones that have broken the law. And then next thing you know, that causes the X-Men and the Avengers to fight. And what causes them to quit fighting is they suddenly realize mid-battle or at some point in the story that the Sentinels have overridden their programming and are killing everybody. And that causes them to come together as like a big super team, or at least a team up.
And then on that same note, if you did want to do Galactus as the overriding theme, you could do the whole Nightmares of Future Past as the overriding theme. Taking what you just said, and that the Sentinels are starting to take over.
Yeah.
And that they're working towards making it, like a dystopian future kind of thing, and everybody has to work together to stop it. That would be kind of cool.
That would be really awesome. I think that would be a great Avengers.
I think it would be great to see Days of Future Past done right, but that's just.
It was close, but it wasn't. I mean, here's the thing: like a lot of the stuff that I saw Fox-wise, I would be like, I'm not really happy with how they did it, but at least we're getting to see it.
So that's my whole problem with the Fox X-Men universe is that we have yet to see an X-Men movie. We have seen Wolverine guest starring some people who kind of sort of look like the X-Men. And then when they did the reboot, like, there was no Cyclops, there was Havoc. I don't know. I want to see an X-Men movie where you have the core team, the original core team. Cyclops, Beast, Iceman, Jean, Angel. You know, I would like to see that. And you could actually kind of sort of work on that premise. You have the original team, and then you have the original team, something happens to them, so Xavier has to bring in a backup team, and that's where you can bring in Storm and Wolverine and Colossus. Please give me an on-screen Colossus. I need a Shadow Cat.
Maybe they could all be captured by the Sentinels, and that's where
or something like that.
The Avengers pop up to stop them. Be like, hey, these guys are evil. They're like, no, they're not.
Yeah, and so, but I know that everybody's like, well, Wolverine, but I'm sorry, Wolverine is oversaturated.
It's time for him to take a back seat.
Yeah, and
give Jubilee some time.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, you will never get an on-screen Jubilee.
I bet I might.
You might in The Gifted. You need to watch that show.
I would watch The Gifted.
That show, like we sat down to watch
Polaris
it.
Is in there.
Polaris is in it. There's a couple other, like the Cuckoo Triplets are in it. There's a couple other there's Easter eggs all in there. Blink is in it. So
now, what would happen to Legion, to The Gifted, to all these Fox shows once this merger happens?
If they're going to integrate them, they would have to find a way to integrate them, which makes it all interesting. They've done a really good job. I think they've done a really good job of laying the groundwork for that in Cloak and Dagger because they've mentioned everything. And I think Cloak and Dagger is actually done by Marvel, so I need to take a step back from that. The Gifted, the way that The Gifted is working is that the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants have just disappeared. They're gone. They're nowhere to be found.
So this probably isn't true canon to the Fox movies.
I don't know. I think it would be better if they went with that instead of what they've done with the Fox movies. Just have that the X-Men and the Brotherhood were around for a while, and that they vanished, and now you've got this one group of the Mutant Underground, which is basically that they've pretty much seeded that. In The Gifted, the way it works is that mutants are feared. There is the anti-mutant movement that's got a senator behind it and the whole 9 yards. There are Sentinels. There's the mutant police force that they've got. I can't remember the name of it. And then there's also the Hellfire Club. And then there's the MRD, the Mutant Response Division, or something like that. I think that's what it's called. And so to just kind of spread that out into the main MCU universe and have that be everywhere, I think would be probably the best way. And then the X-Men and the Brotherhood, probably starts with the Brotherhood coming back, causing some crap, and then 2/3 of the way through that, the X-Men come back to stop them. Because they've in The Gifted, they've referenced Magneto by telling Polaris that the one of the kings of the Hellfire Club is your dad. Magneto was a Hellfire Club king. But like I said, the only problem that I have with the only obstacle I see to them using Magneto is at some point in time he has to have been a Nazi prisoner, whether he's a Hydra prisoner.
Yeah.
Or and he's been in cryogenic stasis for something like that. I don't know how they're going to work that out, but that whole the tattoo, everything is integral to his character, and if you take that out, you take out a good chunk of his motivation, because that's his thing. I could
see Fox doing something like that, but I couldn't see the MCU doing something like that. They tend to stick to what makes a character good.
Yeah, and that's integral to his character. He's, like, he believes that mutants have the potential to be persecuted the way that the Jews are persecuted by the Nazis, and that he has to protect them so that they're not put in internment camps and they're not experimented on and they're not, just mass killed.
Have there been any other times like that in history through the 70s or 80s?
Not that I can think
or
of.
even 90s, like maybe there were some issues in like Syria or something like that, or maybe I like your idea of his family being taken out by Hydra, and Hydra being the catalyst for all of his ills.
Well, like I said, I mean, if you make Wanda and Quicksilver his kids, and Hydra had his kids, that means Hydra has him
probably 50s somewhere. Or early 60s then.
Right, as opposed to being in his 90s?
Yeah.
Because if you keep him tied to World War II, he's ancient.
Yeah, and it would had to have been born at least in the mid 30s.
Yeah.
So you're looking at him being 80 years old at this point.
Right. Now there are a couple of ways you could do that. You could have where, since he is tapped into Earth's magnetic field, it somehow retards his aging. But that's wonky. He's chronologically 80 years old, but he looks 40, or okay. But I don't know. Like I said, it's and that's kind of why that's kind of why. Now, of course, they did in the comic books. They did kind of sort of fix that because they had him turned back into a baby at one point in time. But how do you? If they're going to do Dark Phoenix, depending on what they do with Dark Phoenix, they could potentially, because the last time we saw the X-Men, it was set in the 80s, right?
Yeah, I've heard this is probably going to be set in the 90s.
Okay, so we could still, if they somehow work it to where what happens in Dark Phoenix and some sort of energy surge from the Phoenix happens at about the same time that they fix everything in the MCU, you could have that energy surge push them forward in time to where, like the Phoenix energy mixed with the Time Stone energy causes all the people, all the X-Men and the, Magneto and all these guys who were here to go from 1992 to 2018. Time travel.
My money is on. Think about it. Let's say we're looking at a year, a little less than a year before Dark Phoenix comes out.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, in the time frame for Apocalypse, for Days of Future Past, for all those other movies, we've already heard something. And right now, it doesn't really seem like it's almost like Fox is letting this movie take a back seat to all of the Disney Fox merger news.
Right. Let me see what they've got. Let's see here. Mystique Beast. Let's see here. Let's come out in February.
Thought it got delayed.
Release date's February 14th. Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day next year.
Yep. Hang on. Let me see if they say when it's set. Because that would. Whoa. Okay, it's John Bryan's directorial debut. Dark Phoenix's scheduled premise, 1992.
Okay. Jubilee will still be around.
Yeah.
That's what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for Jubilee to get her deserved.
The 90s was when the Mallrats were really popular. So she
was popular in the late 80s, according to that one too.
Yeah. But So X-Men Apocalypse took place in the 80s. And then this is going to take place in 92.
First Class was in the 60s. Days of Future Past was in the 70s. Apocalypse was in the 80s. And I don't know. I think this is probably the last hurrah, and then we'll be seeing them in the MCU.
I think so.
I don't think they're going to set anything. This is going to be a definitive bookend on the series.
Right.
I really think so.
I think that they can pull this off. Their Quicksilver isn't it? That would be kind of weird though if they pull over their Quicksilver into the MCU and he gets to meet Wanda.
I don't think that this group is going to be put into the MCU at all. I think this is going to the Fox series. This movie is going to be the wrap on it, and then they're going to start from scratch. I really don't see any crossover.
Well, I mean, they've done a really good job. I like McAvoy and what's his name as Magneto. I like the guys that they've got playing Xavier and Magneto now. And McAvoy, I mean, and they've actually got that Magneto tied into the whole Nazi thing. So, and of course, you're dealing with a reality stone too. That could just, pull them. They could actually say that they got pulled out of their reality into this reality, or they could actually take a page out of the DC, out of the DC book where there's a multiverse, and then something happens, and that multiverse is collapsed into one universe. And so while
isn't that kind of what happened in Marvel anyway, just recently?
Yeah, that's. But, that would be one way of doing it, is to have all these different different timelines merged, and just say, well, it didn't happen like that here, but it could still happen.
Yeah,
we're devolving.
The MCU didn't really take anything from the previous Sony Spider-Man movies.
Thank God.
And I don't think that the MCU will take anything from the Fox X-Men movies or Fantastic Four.
I think they could probably take the actors, some of them. I like Sophie Turner as Jean Grey.
I do too.
I like the guy that they've got playing Beast.
I like the guy they have playing Quicksilver.
Yeah, he's great. And I really kind of want to see him meet Wanda. I want to see their Quicksilver meet Wanda.
Well,
that would be interesting, because they even referenced in that there's reference to Magneto being his dad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'd be kind of no. I still have something about Hydra having Magneto as a hostage or as on ice or something. It's just got to happen to keep Magneto true to form. And hey, not only were you captured by Nazis, but they've had you on ice for decades, and they take you out every now and then to experiment on you, and then they put you back in, and now you finally escaped. And let's go attack Cape Citadel. Let's go attack NASA.
Yeah, but I think Magneto is the best villain when he's doing his own thing, not when he's the puppet in somebody's.
No. So, okay, I just kind of sort of painted it in my head. So you have, I just don't see how you get Charles involved in it, but you have, there's a twist. Charles, at some point in time, was a member of Hydra, was one of the ones helping them research mutants, realized what they were doing, and then went off on his own, was like, okay, no, this is wrong. What they're doing here is wrong. We need to do it the right way.
I don't think that's believable just because he's a mind reader.
Well, no, just like at first, that's, they convinced him, hey, this is right. And then somewhere in there, he grew a moral conscience.
Either that or he sees them go over the edge with
right.
Something.
And so that's how he knows Magneto. But my thought there is so like Magneto being been held by Hydra, he's not a puppet. He breaks out, destroys the facility he's in, starts watching the news to find out what's going on, and shows up just as they're about to launch the first Mars mission to destroy that mission, because that would keep it current. Because like he was stopping some sort of shuttle launch or something.
If that's the case, have Magneto be a hostage of Hydra, and have Xavier become friends with him while he's a hostage.
Right. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, just for me, you can't get away from making him a victim of the Nazi war.
Some kind of oppressive regime or something. Yeah, I totally get it. Well, I think we've talked about this enough. I think we've been going for like an hour.
Yes, I think so.
But yeah, I actually hope to cover this among other things. As
more news comes out, we'll probably talk about it more.
Maybe some more panels or something. Some of our upcoming events.
And if you're watching and you have a theory, put it in the comments below.
Yes.
And we'll read over the comments, and then we'll come back and rehash this maybe later on. This is probably going to be something we're going to hit at least maybe once every 2 months or so until we finally get an answer.
Like I'm sure we'll. February is Captain Marvel and Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
And then here's something somebody showed me next year. This is not really comic book related per se, but next year they have the Dumbo movie, the live action Dumbo, the live action Aladdin, and the live action
Mulan.
Lion King.
Oh. They're also working on Mulan too.
Yeah, but these three are all coming out from like February to July. All three of those Disney live action movies are coming out in like a 6-month span.
Are you trying to say that Dumbo's a mutant and they're trying to work him into the...
No, I'm saying Disney is oversaturating their live action remakes.
Oh God, yes. I mean, and
I think they should be one a year. We had like what, Jungle Book, and then Beauty and the Beast,
which sucked.
And that was what, over the course of 2-3 years, and now suddenly it's like
Beauty and the Beast was horrible.
3 in the first half of the year.
And Beauty and the Beast was not horrible because they made LeFou gay. Don't get me wrong. It was horrible because it was very badly acted. It was... My problem with the live-action Beauty and the Beast is all the background actors and stuff, I'm willing to bet that they took from Broadway, and they were still acting and singing as if they were on stage, not in front of a camera. Which is a completely different acting process.
Oh God.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's. I think we're gonna wrap on that. Be sure to check us out. We're gonna be
everywhere.
What are we doing? Like, I know we're gonna be at Untitled Nerd Network is gonna be at HalloCon the last weekend of October. We have some stuff lined up for November, but we haven't finalized that yet, so we can't really say anything. And then we're gonna have basically an event a month through the first 3 months of 2019. So
wow.
Yeah. But anyway,
and Game of Thrones panel at Conuga.
Oh yeah, I'm not even gonna start talking about our panels yet because holy crap, we're gonna have probably half a dozen or more panels over the first 2 months of the year. There's gonna be a lot of stuff going on. So. But anyway, that, and be sure to check out our game streams and all that other good stuff. Something every day, nearly every day. And anything further?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm Lonnie.
I'm Mark.
And this has been a freaking hour-long comic book malarkey. I guess we had so much stuff we had to catch up on.
Right.
That's how it happens. So. But anyway, we're sponsored by both Infinity Flux and your local Satanist, both out of the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, and we will be back at some point with another one of our lovely little roundtable discussions.